Good evening. Welcome to the Diablo 3 podcast. We are online at diabloinkgamers.com. I will spare you a minute and a half about why you should subscribe to iTunes because I don't care. And our guest tonight, a guest that hasn't been on for a while, M0uakkai.
How's it going?
And how should I actually be saying your name?
That's perfect, what you just said.
Okay, thank you. That's perfect. Our other guest tonight is Muggs.
Hello, greetings.
And Muggs is one of the people in our In-Gamers Hardcore clan. Used to be in our Hardcore clan, still is. Soon to be heading up our In-Gamers East clan. Because he had a terrible accident. You were riding your motorcycle home from work, and you crashed into a post, and it tore off both your testicles. And so you said, I'm going to play Softcore this season. That's how it goes, right? Once you lose your testicles, you play Softcore?
Oh, yeah, that's the way it goes, I guess.
Yeah, I told them I have lots of Softcore jokes. Like, Softcore is like the new Jay Wilson, so just brace yourself.
I wasn't ready for that one. That one got me.
Well, neither was the fence post, but... So explain to us your why you decided to play Softcore this season after being Hardcore last season, and successfully. It's not like you were just in T1 all season, right? You went up to T2 once or twice?
Yeah, I mean, I've played...
What's it like once you go over T1, by the way? I've never actually done that in Hardcore.
It's
pretty scary, right?
It's a lot of
You need like a double unity and like an esoteric alteration to make it to survive, right?
Oh, and then the new one, whatever the new defensive one is, I can't even remember that one. You need that one too.
Where you get 50,000 hit points per second?
Yeah, the Gizzard, the Molten Wildebeest Gizzard.
Molten Wildebeest Gizzard,
of course.
Yeah.
You know, pure tank with a shield, move slow, take about 30 minutes to clear a rift, right?
Yeah, that's how I play. How else would you play?
Right, exactly.
And now you're in Softcore, so you just do like GR57s all day, and you just like zerg your way through them, right?
Right. You know,
and you're actually doing this podcast during the 30-second death cooldowns, right?
Of course. I just died, actually, right there. So.
Well, first time this minute, anyway.
Yeah, I mean...
So slightly more seriously, you were playing Hardcore last season, you're playing Softcore this season. What's the deal?
I mean, I played Hardcore pretty much my entire D3 career. I only played Softcore for the first month, month and a half after release in Vanilla. I played Hardcore all through D2. So I was like, it was kind of like, I had a bunch of disconnects last season and a bunch of issues right when patch 2.2 hit. So I was just like, I'm getting tired of losing my characters to something that's not my fault. So me and two other people from the In-Gamers Hardcore clan, which is Cornkills, who was one of the top players, and Recurring, who, again, one of the top players, were like, hey, let's give Softcore a try this season. So we just, threw our hats into the ring, and we decided to give Softcore a try and see what it was like. Yeah, because I have not played it since I played it the first month of Vanilla, so I could figure out what the game was like before going over to Hardcore. And then I played it all my entire D2 career. So it's kind of neat. I mean, I don't know how else to explain it. The best way I would explain the biggest difference between Hardcore and Softcore is Softcore is instant gratification. So you get like everything you want in 40 hours of game time, and there's really... Where Hardcore is like the long game. Like you're really in it for like the long haul because you're going to die. It's inevitable, regardless of disconnects or anything else, which last season I had 5 disconnects, which is more than I've had in my entire D3 career. You're going to die. So you're constantly building these characters and backups and backup sets and second characters and third characters. And you're playing these games for hours upon hours and weeks upon weeks and months upon months, as opposed to Softcore, which is like, I get everything. Like, I've been playing 80 hours now in Softcore, and I think everything I have minus like 3 pieces is ancient.
Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. And then you just kind of...
And then you get bored with the game and go play Path of Exile for 2 months.
Well, that's what apparently what half the people do. Then I'd probably go back to Hardcore. But, it's just... It's also changed, too, because, I mean, I don't know if you were... Well, I know you remember. But in D2, when you died... Like, the hardcore community would, like, come together and, like, a new game would pop up and there would be loot all over the ground and you'd be ready to go and, like, back into hell and farming again within a couple hours. Now, with, like, everybody
Now you can do that by yourself.
Well, yeah. Well, now you die, and like nobody gives away gear because there's always, I need my back.
You can't.
Well, yeah.
How could you?
Well, that's it. But I mean, even in a game, it's like, oh, I have to have a backup. Oh, this just dropped. I'm going to keep this in case I lose my monk. Oh, I just got another one. I don't want to keep this one. This one's pretty good. So if I lose my monk again, blah blah blah, or demon hunter, whatever it is, I'm going to keep these. Where in softcore, you play these games at the end of every rift. There's like the ground is littered with loot because everyone's like, it's not as good as what I have. Even if it's an ancient, you can have it. So that was kind of a nice, refreshing change too.
So what is your play experience, M0uakkai? You mostly do softcore. Have you tried some hardcore? How does what Muggs is saying compare to your experience, and how are you enjoying Path of Exile the last 3 weeks?
I would agree with Muggs. I mean, I'm softcore all the way, just because, yeah, it's I don't know. I've played hardcore. I've got like 300 Paragon points there, so I've spent some time in hardcore, and I think it's a nice change of pace. Like there's definitely different mindsets for people who play hardcore and for people who play softcore. And like what Muggs said, with people in hardcore wanting to keep backups. That's what you have to do in hardcore because death is just inevitable. It's really not if you're gonna die, it's when you're gonna die in hardcore. Whereas in softcore, there's definitely more loot share that goes on because once you have said item, and if it's not an upgrade or whatever, you can share it. So I do agree. Hardcore was definitely a lot of stress when I played it because there's a lot of disconnects and lag spikes that you have no control over. And in softcore, if that happens, you die. No big deal. But in hardcore, if you do, it's a restart and it sucks.
So one of the things that often comes up when seasons start is that we wonder how much of interest in new seasons differs between the hardcore and the softcore community. Because hardcore, you're kind of used to restarting at times, and you're used to a fresh start. It's kind of fun to build yourself up again, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge to get back to being able to do T6 and be able to push up into higher, greater rifts. And it's not such a challenge in softcore. And the stereotype there is that every time you join a public game, it's 3 guys in like rares and Cain set, waiting for someone to power them through the T6 rift, right? So how was the leveling up experience different this time, Muggs, in softcore, and was it quicker, and were the public games all full of people in rares and Cain sets?
I don't know about public games because I really only play with the same group of people. And originally it was clanmates, but now I've got the same maybe 4 or 5 people that I play with pretty consistently. It was a lot faster, yeah, because there was zero fear. There wasn't like, it wasn't a measured approach where, everything I did in hardcore, and I'm P600 in hardcore. So, I mean, everything I did in hardcore was measured. Like, okay, I know that I need X damage and Y toughness, and then I can move to the next level. And then once I get the next bump up, I can move again to the next level, and I can keep going, and I can do this. Wherein, I mean, there is a Zerg mentality in softcore, and there's also that softcore was new for me, so like I was giddy about dying. I was like, screw it. I'm like, if we die, we die. Who the hell cares? This is softcore. Even though you do learn that later on it becomes a chore, but you don't want to die. It's not your intention. But it was a much faster experience. It was a much more lax experience. Public games are public games. I really didn't jump into a public T6 game until I could carry a public T6 game. So at that point,
and did you have to once you tried?
Yes,
or?
yeah, you got in there, and there
So were they actually in rares and Cain
yeah,
sets? I would still love to see that.
My first T6 pub game I got into, there was a guy who was Paragon 3. And he was in
man.
full.
He's probably. I'm sure he had some ancient gear.
Yeah, I mean, but I didn't, at that point, I really didn't care. Like, my Barb was at such a power level that I was just like, whatever, I'm just doing it for the rift keys anyway. So I just, powered through it. And then sometimes I would tell people, I would be like, listen, I'll carry you guys, just give me all your blues at the end of the run, because blues are pretty much non-existent. So I would be like, we'll carry for blues. Which does not exist in hardcore. I've never jumped into a T6 pub game and ever found people that were not prepared to at least be over tank the stuff. They might not contribute DPS wise, but they're not going to die.
However, we do also have a horrible shortage of blue items, so at least we have that in common.
Right, yeah. Blues in this game are absolutely ridiculous.
I think that's funny. I'm so happy when I find a chest. I'm like, oh, thank God. And then as soon as you get a rare from a chest, you're like, God damn it.
Oh, I get
I wanted
really
a blue.
annoyed.
I don't want a rare.
You know,
The game's like, but I gave you an upgrade. It's magic fine. You're like, no, no, it's not.
I screenshotted my last two RG kills just to see. I got 27 veiled crystals, you know, blood shards and gold and whatever else, and I got 4 arcane dust. You know, at the end of a really good
That's
full.
almost half an enchant, though. What more do you want?
No, it's not. If you're trying to make like Reaper's Wraps or anything like that, that's 70 arcane dust. I can't even do a full clear of T6 will not even net me enough to make one Reaper's Wraps usually. It's absolutely ridiculous the rarity of blues in this game.
That's after they lowered the amount required too.
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely ridiculous.
So how is your seasonal stuff going, M0uakkai? Is playing softcore, are you jumping into seasons? Does it feel weird to start a new character? Are you just doing it on T6 the whole way and you're back to max level in like 20 minutes? How does that go for you?
I actually this season decided to opt out.
Well, there you go.
Playing
That's
seasons.
evidence of my argument.
Just
Did you
because.
play in season 1 and 2, though?
Yes, I played season 1 and 2, and
So now you're playing season single player online.
pretty much. No, my group of friends and I, we decided to opt out of season 3 just because season 2 felt it was 7 weeks long, and we had just started pushing again in seasons, and then they said, hey, season 2 is ending. And so it was just too soon to start all over, and it took me like a day and a half to sort through my seasonal rollover, and I couldn't do that again in season 3.
Yeah.
Plus, I wanted to spend some time trying out the new sets, and
Yeah, I was gonna say, I bet the fact that the new sets were not seasonal probably made that decision easier for you.
yeah, it made it a lot easier just because I wanted to jump in and try out these new sets, and I felt like if I did do season 3, I'd have too much to focus on in terms of leveling up again and then gearing.
I have too much restraint on, actually, myself. Ha ha, bum bum bum. Do you play Demon Hunter some, though? I thought you played Demon Hunter some.
Yes,
But don't you feel pissed that they've gimped the UE set in non-seasonal because you can't get Dead Man's Legacy?
actually not really, because I'm using meticulous bolts and Kreider right now, and it's actually pretty cool.
Even though it's lightning, yes. But I want to
Uh-huh.
roll tonight. So, have you considered playing hardcore again? You're comfortable in seasons? Are you like Paragon 1200 or something now? Or what is you're just like play to crush?
I'm 10-11 right now.
Wow.
I have been toying with the idea of going back into hardcore, but if I do that, I'd wait until probably the beginning of season 4,
Yeah.
just so that I could start over with the rest of the community, but definitely not at this moment.
Yeah, it's kind of late to jump, I guess. Well,
Yeah.
it's only been a week of the season, really, but
Yeah.
so first week of the season. I mean, it's obviously different for one of you is not playing in the season, but you're definitely playing in the patch. So, what are you thinking about the new set items, M0uakkai? You said you don't mind not having your Dead Man's Legacy.
No,
What class are you playing, and how is the new stuff going for you?
I have played Demon Hunter and Barb since the patch. Um, Focusing on a UE set right now for the Demon Hunter, and it's pretty cool with meticulous bolts and Kreider shot. It actually feels like the Hell Trapper build.
Meticulous bolts is the slow motion
Yes,
elemental arrows,
elemental
right?
arrow.
Or lightning bolts.
The lightning balls, and so it kind of feels like the Hell Trapper build from 2.1.
Mhm.
But
Where you got extra free sentries
yeah, that one.
or faster sentries anyway.
But this time it's not about the sentries. You don't have sentries, and so all the damage that you push out is your own. And so it's been pretty fun. But I'm really enjoying the Whirlwind set. It reminds me of vanilla with the spinning barb.
Do you have an opinion on Mortick's bracer being removed at the last minute? You're strong enough and you don't care?
Uh,
Can you imagine having full-time all forms of Wrath of the Berserker right now?
I think they made a good decision taking it out. Maybe introducing it in a later season, because I went to Kadala and I gambled a set, the waste set, and I threw all that on and I cleared a 49 in my first try. And so I'm thinking if I had those bracers, Barbs would be clearing a lot higher than they are now. And I think one of the things that Blizzard's doing since Reaper of Souls came out is they've been trying to balance the classes, and I think with all these new sets that they've introduced, the classes are a little more balanced than they have been ever.
Except for witch doctors, they're still pissed and
Witch
pathetic,
doctors
but
are still lagging behind a little, but with focus and restraint, and I mean the pet build, this poison dart build is doing really well right now, which is something that I never thought I would say.
Yeah, the
probably
dagger
Blizzard
of
agrees
darts.
with that statement.
Yeah, the dagger of darts build is actually pretty strong. I've run
Yeah.
with it. Well,
It's crazy because I had a friend that used to vouch for that build. He's like, man, get a carnival and just play it. And I always judged him because I was like, man, this build I don't think will ever be good. And now it's like the thing for witch doctors.
So describe it for people who haven't played a witch doctor. And focus and restraint gives you a big damage buff for each time you basically alternate your spinders and your generators,
yes.
and that stacks up a double bonus. So you have a huge damage bonus, and then you're just shooting lots of poison darts. How does the build work?
Well, the carnival makes it so that every time you shoot a poison dart, your fetishes shoot them as well, and the dagger of darts makes it so that they pierce. And so, if you have your 8 fetish army plus your 15 sycophants shooting piercing darts, every second, I mean that's a lot of focused damage. And
Imagine if you could use meticulous bolts with that. Also, you'd really be awesome.
yeah, right.
You could have slow motion poison
Slow motion
darts.
poison darts. But yeah, so I mean it's nice, and I like how now there's definitely. Remember a couple podcasts ago we were talking about build diversity.
Mm-hmm.
I think
And how there wasn't
there
any?
wasn't. Yeah, but I feel like now there is. There's more diversity with the classes. Like with Demon Hunter, there's 3 viable sets that actually do well in Greater Rifts.
Which is 2 more than we used to have. Yeah.
Exactly. And with the Wizard, the slow time's good in groups, and that new Tal Rasha set is I've seen it in action. I'm still looking for the pieces, but it's pretty cool. And so I'm liking the direction the game's going in right now with the different builds that are viable. So
A brief digression before we throw this to Muggs for his new set gear. Have you played with Marauders any in the new patch?
I've played a little
I mean, why
bit.
would you, right? You have UE now.
I've played a little bit, but yeah, exactly. I have UE now, and
Can you figure out the ghost sentries? I have not figured out how those work yet. Where you have the sentry counter now when you play with Marauders,
mhm,
and it goes up to 5 if you have obviously the bombardiers and the passive.
mhm.
And you go to a new level, and you'll have 5 on the old level. At the new level, you'll have like 2 or 3. It'll still say 2 or 3 on the counter, and then it goes up to 4 or 5 when you cast a couple more. So you don't have. It's never been clear in the past. That was the problem with Marauders in the past. When you went to a new level, you had this kind of wind-up time
Yeah.
where your damage sucked, so you could cast at least 4 or 5 sentries up again because each one of those adds 100% to your damage and obviously adds their own damage. But I always get the feeling that I had a little bit of carryover damage. Like I would see my crit numbers, and they weren't like as low as they were when I first started a brand new game. And I'm not sure if the sentries were always carrying over like invisibly, but they're not there. I mean, they're not on the level with you. And if you go back to the previous level, you don't see the sentries. But now there's a counter number. It will show 2 or 3 or sometimes even 4 or 5 sentries still. And your damage, your damage is scaling up as though you have that many sentries.
I actually
And I can't
have not
figure
noticed
out
that.
what part. Yeah, have you played Marauders in the new one now? Or I haven't figured it out yet.
I played Marauders until I got UE, and then I switched over to UE.
But have you noticed the invisible sentries and figured that out part?
No, I have not.
Because I have not either.
I have not.
I could ask John about that or something. I don't know what's. It's weird. I mean, it's definitely nice. You don't have to cast all 5 to start up again, but the number seems to just vary. Sometimes I'll go to a new level and it'll stay at 5, and sometimes it'll go to 2 or 0 or 3. And it's like it was 1 second ago. They didn't expire. They should still be here. So it's kind of weird that way, but it's a mystery, and I haven't figured it out yet. So I figured out in an article, but no one knows until then. And I don't blame Jay Wilson for this. So, what are you up to lately in the new season? Other person? Majin Space?
Yeah,
What am I talking to? Muggs. That's the one. M0uakkai.
yeah.
So you're playing. What are your builds and softcore and how are your new gear and what's exciting?
I've pretty much focused 100% on Barb. I haven't played a Barb since, again, I figured I haven't played softcore since vanilla. I haven't played a Barb since vanilla. So I went 100% Barb. And I've been playing the Whirlwind, you know, 3-piece IK, 6-piece waist, variation and having a really good time.
And Mortick's Bracer, yes or no?
It would have been nice if it was in there. It would have made clearing, mid 50s pretty easy for most, if not all Barbs. But I know that there was the bug with the Mirane and Mortix Bracer that if that had gone live would have, you thought just to segue, you thought the Blood Shard exploit was bad. That would have been extremely bad, and everybody would have been doing it. It would have been nice, just to have 50% increased damage as well as 50% damage mitigation and all the rest of the runes, but it's not needed. Not yet anyway. I mean, they could probably even it out a little bit. Barbs still, compared to the other classes, and I get to see the other classes in the 50s because we're running them in softcore, are really, really, really painfully slow on Rift Guardians. And the Mortix Bracer would have been nice in that regard. I mean, I thought my Firebird Wizard was bad. Where you sat there and you got up your dot and you kind of just ran around like an idiot for 20 minutes, waited for the RG to die. But the Whirlwind Barb is almost as bad, if not worse, because you're actually right in the thick of it. You just got to sit there and move, and you still got to avoid damage, even in softcore. And it just takes an eternity for the damn RGs to die. Like, it'll take me 5 minutes to kill an RG on a 5152. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Longer than the rest of the Rift in total.
Yeah, I mean, really, it takes me less time to get to the RG than it does to kill the RG. A lot of times. Or about the same amount of time. Which is, is not a fun experience in any way, shape, or form. That's bad design if you ask me.
What are you using for a weapon? Are you using the IK hammer?
Yeah, if you go this 3-piece IK and the 6-piece waist, the only way to do it is with the IK Boulder Breaker. So.
And there's no elite damage on that. So if you had a furnace, would it make a difference, or would it still be 2.5 minutes instead of 5 minutes? I guess.
If you could make a furnace work in the build, I mean, I would try it. If you could honestly make it work, it would probably be a big difference. But right now I'm not carrying any. The only elite damage I have is what comes on my Unity. And the only elemental damage I'm having is what comes on my bracers and my neck. So it's once you reach the RG, you just spin. You just sit there and spin around for 5 minutes. And rend every couple seconds.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Sounds like a really fun play style.
It's not. It really. I mean, I was really excited for it, and up until the high rifts, it's a lot of fun. Like, clearing up to them, and in groups it's a lot of fun. You do a ton of damage to white mobs and packs, and T6, it's probably one of the fastest builds I've ever run, when I run with the 2 Belcathos swords and sprint. So I'm having a field day there. It's just when you actually push the greater rifts and you get to the end, you're just like, it's boring. It really, there's no other way to put it. It's really, really, really boring.
What do you guys use for bracers since there's no Mortix?
I'm using.
Is there a BIS obvious choice or what?
No, for most of the time I'm using Reaper's Wraps because they're crafted and I can get a good pair of Ancients.
If only you had more blue materials, you could have a really nice pair.
Yeah, don't get me started.
What are your bracers, M0uakkai and Barb?
I'm actually using Reapers as well. I was switching back and forth between Reapers and Lacunis, but for higher, greater rifts, I've been using Reapers.
Are you doing the same Whirlwind
Yes.
Rind build that everyone else on every single other barbarian on Battle.net is using?
Pretty much.
Pretty much.
I want to try the Focus and Restraint one.
The Focus and Restraint with the 2 Belcathos?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just haven't found the Belcathos yet, but
it's really strong up to like level 38 or like 42 in a group. Other than that, if you're really going to still push, the IK waist is still the way to go.
Yeah. Yep. I'll agree with that.
So the whole thing when they were developing that set and when we were testing on the PTR was people kept nobody likes the Rend part of it. The Whirlwind's fun, but then you have to stop every now and then to do Rend, and people kept saying, "Can we get a faster casting animation for Rend?" And Blizzard was like, "No, you need to be vulnerable for a half a second while you do that." since the whole time you're in Whirlwind, you're kind of untouchable. How do you guys feel that's working? Do you think the Rend adds fun to the play style, or you just ignore that entirely until you get to the Guardian?
Well, the Rend is necessary. I mean,
It
if
is
you want to
necessary.
maintain perma Wrath of the Berserker, you have to Rend. You can't just Whirlwind the entire time. I have to Rend 4 times if I've been Whirlwinding, 4 or 5 with my amount of CDR. If I've been Whirlwinding the whole time to keep Wrath of the Berserker up the entire time. So you have to. There's no way around it. It's not like you can ignore it. With the Bulkatha's swords, you can ignore it, in the lower rifts, but when you're pushing the high ones, you have to. You have to. And I kind of like it because it adds a little strategy to the play style as opposed to just holding a button for the entire time you're playing, because you have to know when to rend. Like, you can't just, walk into a middle of a pack and rend. You got to kind of like rend along the edges or, watch for the swing animations on all the guys so you don't get, because you'll get, if you rend at the wrong, if you rend at the wrong time, you'll proc Nerves of Steel and, have to keep going.
And because you're playing Softcore, you only have like 2 million toughness too, right? So it's really tricky that way.
Actually, I think I'm with fully like stacked. I'm somewhere around
2 million toughness. That's what they have in our Softcore. So it is written. I don't think it's possible to have 2 million toughness.
I was actually going to say, I think
it's
it's
like 9,000 strength.
I think it's like 1.8. We're around 1.8 million toughness.
Yeah, so you round up to 2 million.
Yeah.
That seems fair enough. That's plenty for T1, so you're good to go. So any other new legendary items you guys are using? I guess I'll throw one in. There's a belt that we're all calling the Impale belt. It's the Sash of Knives, which existed before, but it's got a new legendary property. I think it only drops for Demon Hunters, but I could be wrong on that part. But I've only played Demon Hunters so far this season, so what would I know, right? But it just throws out a dagger at nearby targets, kind of like the Barbarian's Whirlwind. Sorry, the sidearm with Frenzy, right? Where it throws an axe.
Yeah.
But this one just throws a dagger at stuff. And it's funny. It's basically the Impale skill. It's a dagger that does 500 to 650% weapon damage, which is damn near as much as the skill Impale does by itself. And you realize why they'll never be able to make Impale a viable skill to base a build around. I can't imagine what a set would do that would make Impale be a viable skill. A single target skill. It's like, what, really? No. But it's just like, I found that. Unfortunately, I've had to level up a Demon Hunter twice so far this season for reasons we're not going to get into here. Well, probably we will, but anyway, I have to do. And both times I found that belt at like level 25, so I used it for like 40 levels. And even once you first get to 70, if you're doing something with a lot of fast attack speed, this belt, literally every attack, it shoots out a dagger that's often doing more damage than your actual main attack. And once you finally get into like Marauder 6 or the full UE or something, and you're having massive AOE hitting 50 monsters at once. One more monster doesn't really make a difference, right? But it's actually very effective early on, and it seems to target things that you're not shooting at. So if you're shooting to the left at a big group and there's like 2 stray monsters to your right, the dagger will totally pick them off, which is pretty handy when you're playing various builds that you don't want to get hit or you're going to lose buffs and stuff. And it's not, I'm not sure it's in-game. The sense I got of it is that we've had this thing forever where the only real damage belt is Witching Hour. And it's like, if you're going to do damage otherwise, what do you use? It's like, I don't know. Krelm's is good just because you go really fast.
Yeah, I love Krelm's belt.
And some people like Sash of Knives for the defensive buffs and stuff, but there's really been a shortage of belts that add damage. And this patch added a lot of belts. There's like 8 new belts in this. For every class has a new belt that does all kinds of cool stuff. So it seems like they were trying to make options for something other than Witching Hour. And of course, you guys are just looking for the IK belt innocently because you need it for your set bonus, right? But,
right, yeah, we don't get an option to wear a different belt.
Yeah, and that IK belt, you have to get it for the set. So have you used any other new legendaries that are or legendaries with new properties that are making a difference for you? And you can both say Mortick's Bracer and then Curse J. Wilson if you want.
Convention of Elements is actually a really cool ring.
The BlizzCon ring.
Yeah, the BlizzCon ring is actually a really, really cool item. First of all, it rolls amazingly. It always rolls main stat, crit, and some other things. So almost everyone, and a socket. So I mean, they're always going to roll great. And if you use a build like the Whirlwind build, you're constantly whirlwinding. Like, so you're gonna take a full effect of the 4 seconds of extra damage you get, and it's actually really noticeable. So I would love for somebody who is better at math than I am to actually do the math between a well-rolled SOJ or Stone of Jordan and the Convention of Elements, but they drop like candy. They're really fun, and I've actually been using them almost. I use mine all the time. I've been having a lot of fun with that one, and the Fallen Lunatic ring. I used that pretty much
Yeah, the Naglering.
the entire time I was leveling. I mean, because those guys would do a lot of damage. You know, they would go in
Yeah,
there.
that is grossly OP for leveling up. That's been the conclusion. It's not that big. It's not that OP when you're at high level because you already have lots of AOE. But I was playing with a monk who had that at like level 30, and it was doing like 10 times the damage of his attacks. Just the little fallen lunatics blowing up on stuff.
Oh yeah, it was definitely noticeable. We would go into a group of mobs and like it would just take out the entire group. It made you laugh. It was like this is really cool, and the lunatics scaled with weapon damage. So even if you never upgraded your ring, as long as you were upgrading your weapon every so often, they would do more damage constantly. They would scale with you.
Yeah, it doesn't say what the damage is. We were debating that in clan chat. It's obviously weapon damage. I mean, you would agree, right? It's because it does scale up.
Yeah, no, it
But
definitely
it doesn't. It
scales
doesn't
up.
say 400% weapon damage or something like that on the lunatics. Do you have any sense of what it is? Like 1,000% weapon damage or
It's
something? I
got
mean,
to
it's
be close
huge.
to that. Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, at 60 something, they were critting for over 1 million. I wouldn't even hit for 1 million. So that was like the biggest thing I could do is hope that a lunatic would come out. I even put one on my follower for a little while
It seems like it doesn't do much on followers though in terms of
because yeah,
damage.
well, the follower
I think it's
has
weapon damage percentage.
yeah, well, follower only does
They look
200k.
awesome though.
Yeah, and they follow them around. Those are a lot of fun. I can't.
They follow the
They
follower.
follow the follower. I can't think. There was another new legendary, and I can't think of what it was, and I was using it.
It was Mortick's bracer, and it would have made you so awesome. But Jay Wilson took it away. Do you want to jump in there, Mokai? Do you have any interesting other legendaries?
I've used the new Demon Hunter belt, Crashing Rain.
Yeah, I actually have that on my list to mention. So go
Yeah, the
ahead.
Rain of Vengeance one.
Where it casts a thing when you cast Rain of
Yeah.
Vengeance.
So I don't know how the math stacks up between that versus the Witching Hour, but I did try it out and it was pretty cool.
So just describe what it does if people haven't used it yet.
Well,
It's a Demon Hunter belt that does cool things.
yeah, every time you cast Rain of Vengeance, it also summons like a beast thing that does a percentage weapon damage. And I found one that rolled almost max, like 3,900. Max is 4,000. But yeah, I didn't do any greater risk with it. I just tried it out in T6 and I was basically just strafing through the whole rift and casting Rain of Vengeance.
Yeah, the tooltip says 3,000 to 4,000 weapon damage, and it's basically it's one of those charging beasts like you see in Act 1. It's like a shadow version
Yep.
of one, right?
Yep.
And it goes right to where you're pointing the cursor when you cast Rain of Vengeance in like a tenth of a second. It's like super fast.
Yeah.
It looks like Cluster Arrow basically. Cluster Arrow is a buffalo, and it's got a decent AOE. It's not a huge AOE, but it does hit more than one thing. And I didn't find it that useful on the PTR because I was always doing the physical
Mm-hmm.
Rain of Vengeance, and you just cast that the second the cooldown's over.
Yep.
You're not waiting for stuff. I was using it a little bit just playing around the other day, using it with Shade, which is the lightning one that makes the big circle target. And you just wait for an elite, and you cast Shade on the elite, right? But the crashing beast would usually kill the elite before the Shade even started. I'm like, well, this is sort of redundant here.
Yeah.
So if are you using the physical, are you saving it and trying to aim it at stuff, or aren't you just casting physical the second the cooldown's over?
I'm just casting it. Really.
So if there's an elite happens to be handy, it just gets obliterated. Otherwise your beast isn't hitting anything.
Yeah,
Though, really.
not really. It's like I said, I tried it in T6, and it was fun. It was cool seeing the crashing beast or whatever come out and do his thing, but I haven't really focused much time on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think probably getting 10% DPS forever with Witching Hour is probably better than these other belts.
Yeah.
But it is interesting they give you some different options and some different controls and stuff.
Yeah, and it's just nice to have more gearing options when you're doing just random shit in the game. Being able to just try out different rings and different belts, because belts were really lacking there for a while.
It was Witching Hour or Realms or pretty much our set belt sometimes.
String of
it was-
Ears.
String of Ears was good. The cooldown one too.
Vigilance.
Yeah, Vigilante belt, that one.
Yeah.
But besides those 2 or 3 options, there really weren't much gearing options with belts, and so it was nice to see them add more options with the belts. I mean, like Witch Doctor's got 2 new ones, which we don't really care about, but just nice to see all that happening.
Well, I mean, and what happened too is what Wyatt explained would happen where you, at least for me, before I completed my sets, I would get these items and I'd be like, hey, you know what? I don't have my set. I don't really get to do what I want to do. So let me go in this direction and try something new. So that happened to me a bunch. I got to try, I'm like, oh, well, this buffs this skill. I wasn't planning on using this skill, so why don't I might as well, try out. And I had this seismic slam build going for a while, where I had, because I had 6-piece IK and I forget what it's called, the gavel of something.
Gavel of Judgment.
Yeah, it makes it lowers the cost of seismic slam and increases the damage of seismic slam, and basically you can just spam seismic slam nonstop with the new ancients.
It's seismic spam.
Yeah, seismic spam, and I mean I had a lot of fun. I mean I could probably now with focus and restraint take that build if I wanted to up into the mid 40s. But it was fun while it lasted. So I mean, their intent of, hey, let's make all these legendaries and maybe you'll try something new and have a good time doing it, definitely worked until I reached what my pre-planned goal was. So that kind of worked out. That was kind of fun. That was the first time that ever happened. It wasn't like I got something and I was like, oh, well, this sucks. I can't do anything until I get XYZ. So I'm stuck in T1 until I shoot through T6.
Well, that's why you kept playing hardcore. You were tired of being stuck in T1.
Right, exactly. Well, Masters.
That's where we all there. Mentioned that what you said earlier about the BlizzCon ring that you dropped like candy. That's kind of the thing with these other belts and stuff too. Because witching hours are much, what I think they're a tenth is likely to drop, or is it a fifth is likely? They changed the math somewhat. But like you mentioned, I mean, I've found a bunch of Sash of Knives and Charging Rain belts, and I have yet to find a good witching hour of my Demon Hunter. So. Actually, I found one yesterday that had strength on it, and I was like, "Thank you, Jay Wilson." It's just the one.
You're 15%.
You find the one legendary. Yeah, the legendary you really want, and it's the one you finally find, and it's not a smart drop, and it's like, okay, great, thanks. That's just fucking awesome. So I'll just wear this on my dick, and I'll be happy then.
Like my season 2 furnace. Thank you.
Yeah, pretty much. Was it intelligence or what you didn't
want? It was
want? Of course it was. Well, I'm sure the Enchantress loved it when you put it on her. So. But you find these other items, and they're much more common that way. So you end up, while you're still trying to find whatever ancient weapon or ancient thing you want, you get this other thing, and you're like, oh, I'll use this for a while. What the hell? Here I have it. Like Naglering when you're leveling up,
No, and that was...
So, but...
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just cementing what you said. I was agreeing. Go ahead.
Yeah, so a brief question on the on Hallowed Essence set, which we're calling the UE set because letters are easier than words.
Yes.
Is the new Demon Hunter set that makes the huge buff to Multishot. And I was one of many people who were annoyed on the PTR that it was only multi-shot. It only buffs multi-shot and your generators. It doesn't buff any of your other spenders.
Yes.
Which seems fairly arbitrary. Like, why not make it, impale and rapid fire or something else like that? Those would still not be anywhere near as good as multi-shot, of course, but at least they would have something. Mm-hmm. And, of course, you can play a really good multi-shot build with Marauders. I mean, it's not as good as the UE build, but, I mean, I have that gear on my... I could do almost GR40 with that last season on my character. It was less than I could do with Marauders. But it wasn't like there was no way to use the skill multi-shot. We had to get this one set that would finally make it unlock its potential. Obviously, it's better than anything was, but do you feel like it's wasted just having multi-shot? And the other question I have is, it feels really squishy to me. I mean, compared to Marauders, you're lacking all of your pets at once. The Marauders 2-piece bonus. And you don't really have any tanks. You don't really have any CC. Most people are doing it with physical or fire, which gives you no slowdown at all on things. Yep. Do you feel like it's squishier and more dangerous to use? And how do you feel that the general sense of it overall?
On paper, like my toughness on paper is actually more than my Marauders, which is weird. But I do die more often.
You have 7 fewer tanks though. So
yeah, exactly. But I'm not playing seasons, so I don't have access to the Dead Man's Legacy. But in non-seasons, because when you use your Crider, it makes your Elemental Arrow a generator. And so, really, when you're using the Crider and the Meticulous Bolts, you don't rely on multi-shot as a damage dealer. So it kind of takes the UE, because, the UE set, when we were playing it in PTR, it was always the multi-shot set, right?
But with Crider, you kind of subvert that.
Exactly. And so it changes the UE set and into a non-multi-shot focused build. I use multi-shot once every 5 seconds to keep my focus and restraint up. But other than that, I'm just spamming my...
You just fill the screen with super slow motion lightning bolts.
Pretty much. And it's more involved than the M6 build, I feel, because you do have less tanks for you. You know, I have to actually pick up my gold now, which sucks.
Yeah, I hate that part.
But you only have one companion now compared to the 7 that you had before. And so it, it's a lot more kiting than the M6 build, which is kind of hard to believe because you did kite a lot as a demon hunter regardless. But there's definitely a lot more kiting and moving around with the the UE Kreider build.
Are you using it with 6-piece and focus restraint?
Yes, I'm using 6-piece.
So you're not using Pride's Fall or Center Code or anything like
No.
that. Of course, Center Code wouldn't help you with lightning,
Yeah.
but
because you don't have, which is weird, you don't have resource problems if you're using the Kreider.
yeah. Well, you're gaining resource every time you shoot
Exactly.
it.
So,
And you also have infinite discipline because you're constantly using a generator, right?
yes. So I like it because it's the first time I've seen the Demon Hunter. Demon Hunters have always been notorious for being that class that always has the resource problems. And now,
So you don't need Blood Vengeance or Reaper Wraps,
no,
probably.
I don't use Reapers. I use Lacunis. Lacunis
Yeah.
are steady strikers to get the attack speed because you want to stack attack speed so you can get your elemental arrow out faster. And so it's definitely a complete change in play style where you don't have to monitor your resources. You don't have to worry about that stuff, but then you also have to worry about not having any tanks and not getting hit. So I like it. It's different. It's a different play style, but I don't know, once season 3 ends, once I get my hands on a Dead Man's, I think it's going to go back to the Arcane Barb, or like a two-handed, because then you.
What do you do in T6 Rifts? Because I would assume that Meticulous Bolts isn't any good because they're so slow. You just multi-shot stuff?
No, I use I dual wield Donettas.
Yeah, so you just bounce through full speed of blasting things.
Yeah, I switch to fire in T6. I put on double Donettas and I put on Reapers, and I just vault through everything and shoot my multi-shots.
Yeah, it's kind of amusing. So your basic build is only good like above GR40. Like below that, it's irrelevant and slow.
Yeah.
I mean, we have so many builds in the game that are awesome up to like GR35 or 40.
Yep.
And you have found just the opposite. So you're confusing everyone, and you're banned from the podcast. I'm sorry. Say goodnight, M0uakkai.
But I mean, it's nice. I've tried the Chakram one too, the Spine of Seething Hatred.
Yeah, the quiver that makes Chakram a generator.
Yeah, I've tried.
Unfortunately, there aren't any Chakrams that do enough damage, though, right?
Actually, I tried that with an Arcane Barb for like 30 level, like mid 30s, and that actually works more efficiently than the Kreider Meticulous Bolts build because your Chakrams go through walls, and that's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty cheesy. You get like a keep 2 or something, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, hey, I win.
Oh yeah.
And through wallers and through everything.
Yeah, so that was what I was using for mid 30s because your chakrams do travel a lot faster and they go through walls, and yeah, so that's my alt that I use if I'm doing like 30s. Not anything lower than 40s.
The funny thing with the Unhallowed Essence set is I've been wondering because it feels squishy. I mean, it's so fast and you just can't help vaulting and being like super. I was playing it with fire multi-shot for a while, and you would literally go 3 or 4 screens and never see a live monster. Like you would just vault multi-shot, and it goes a little bit off the visible screen. You would just like find chunks of like burning monsters at the edge of the screen.
Yep.
Like everything is just dead before you even get there. But it's so easy, it's so squishy, especially in hardcore. I was wondering if it was going to be like this season's Eun-Jang-Do gear, which, as I'm sure Muggs recalls, early last season we were seeing like 4 dead monks a night.
Yeah.
Because like it had this awesome Eun-Jang-Do gear item, and monks would get into really high stuff, and if you just get one thing killed, they would all blow up. But it was really like min-max intensive in the playstyle. I have not seen a huge rash of dead demon hunters, but it seemed like that was a possibility.
I haven't seen that many people playing Demon Hunter this season either.
Yeah, everyone's playing barbarians.
Yeah, everyone's
so.
playing barbarians. Barbarians are wizards, I've noticed, which is nice.
Well, they have new sets, yeah. So
Yeah, but it's nice to see the focus.
Restraint. Oh, you mean the other focus?
Yeah, move away from demon hunters or last season was monks, so this season it's the barb and the wizard. But it's nice to see the wizards get some love too.
Yeah, but still at
Climb.
the top of the leaderboards, it was still Demon Hunters, and this
Yeah,
year it's still Demon Hunters still.
yeah, it's
And
still
and they're
Demon
now
Hunters.
using UE instead of Marauders too.
Yeah,
So
UE is obscene at high levels. I mean, if you can get something to, like you said, there's nothing to tank. If you can get two people to tank for you,
Yeah, man.
UE just destroys Rift Guardians in like obscenely quick amount of times.
Yeah, they do. And it's nice because in a group, multi-shot, like you said, it goes a little off screen. It's so great when you have, your Crusader or your Fear Doc tanking for you, and you can shoot multi-shot and you can aggro things off screen for your support. That's
and they're dead. I mean, and you can kill things off screen for your support too.
yeah. So it's been nice playing the UE in non-seasons. So, and that's like I said, I didn't play seasons because I wanted to focus on the new game mechanics and the new sets and stuff. And yeah,
Yeah, the funny thing with UE is we're the Dead Man's Legacy, which you're not getting to use, but it gives you double hits on things below 50 to 60% hit
hmm
points. So you'll be fighting these guardians and you do like 10 shots and they're like 58% hit points, and then suddenly like 3 shots and they're dead. It's like, hey, I win.
Yeah,
yep,
no,
It's this weird
it's
sense of
obscene.
you feel like what happened there? Like it was taking X amount of time, and then it takes a tenth as much time, and the whole rest of their health is just gone.
And they work
It's this downhill thing. So
and they work really well with Barbs because Whirlwind Barbs run Battle Rage Plow the Shares, which produces health globes, and so there's just health globes everywhere. So they're not having resource issues, and they're just destroying things even quicker. It's a nice synergy, nice group synergy anyway.
yeah, I do wonder about the just the survivability. I guess obviously in softcore that's less of an issue, but I mean, what happened to me? I was playing a fire one first. The first ancient weapon I found was the one-handed crossbow that gives you plus fire damage. And so
Bellfire,
of course yeah, I forget what it's called. What is it called?
Bellfire caster.
Yeah, there you go. Good name. Yeah, that's right. Balefire Caster. Of course, that's fire in the name. I should remember that part. And so then I ended up playing the six-piece UE, and I was banging around, and I did a bunch of this is like day 3 of the season. I did a bunch of really quick. I burned up all my Rift keys. I did a bunch of like 22s and 26s just to get legendary gems up somewhat. And then I was doing a bunch of T6 runs, and literally the first one I did, I had done GR 26 and like 327 was my best time or something like that. Just flying through them. And so I'm T6 will be easy. It's actually lower than I was just doing. And I got the Act 5 swamp tile set, which has all those little corners and little quicksand pits and stuff.
The little blood
And I was
marsh.
just furiously vaulting multi-shot. I was at like 70% completion in like 2 minutes. And I got some kind of Waller boss and vaulted and started shooting. And I'm like, why isn't he dying? Vaulted again, he's shooting. And nothing is dying. And suddenly my health is vanishing. And I'm like, oh my. And then after like a second, it warped me back. I had like gotten caught on the edge of one of those little rocks, like with a little pit or something. And on my screen, I had gotten desynced. On my screen, I was 3 screens away shooting multi-shot. In the game screen, I was back where I was. And being the squishy UE build, I procced and died in like half a second before it even jumped back to me. And like the screen then jumps back, and I see my corpse line. They're surrounded by like trash mobs. And I was like shooting into a wall for 3 seconds or something, I'm like, hey, it's like Diablo 2 all over again. Desync and dead. I hadn't had that happen in Diablo 3 like ever.
Patch.
And I think I would have probably lived with Marauders because I would have been just banging out, because UE, if you don't shoot right at stuff, nothing happens. Whereas Marauders, the cluster just kind of goes everywhere. So I think I would have lived with cluster, but of course I wouldn't have been doing what I was doing with cluster. But anyway, so I made a new one, and of course I died with all my good UE gear, and I have not gone back to UE, but I'm thinking I might try it with cold next time. Partially just to be able to have a chance to use Ice Blink. Unfortunately, the cold form of multi-shot sucks, so that's one slight drawback. But
Yeah.
I have wondered about Ice Blink as the new legendary gem, and it provides a chill effect when anything you hit with cold. And you don't ever use that with Marauders because you don't need it, because you usually have the Polar Sentries anyway. But you're not really using Polar Sentries with this build that often with the UE set. So anyway, I'm considering that once I get the gear back for it. And I pretty much could do it now. I haven't been playing much the last few days, but I'm really also dying to get back to doing a good enough version of Natalya so that I can really spin strafe effectively in T6, and I don't have the gear for that yet. But that was that's the wonder I'm having about the UE set, at least in hardcore, if it's going to be a little too squishy. But apparently not a problem in softcore. And there's already people who have done over 50, greater rifts over 50 in hardcore in this season already. So
Yeah.
it's pretty effective that way. So, any other legendary stuff? Our main topic here at the end of the show is going to be the whole exploit thing with the blood shard stuff.
Well,
this
the
week.
only other
You guys
one
have any-
that I've seen that used to great success is the In-Geom. That
the sword that removes your cooldown time when you
yeah,
kill an elite.
yeah,
Right?
you kill an elite and it drops your time from like 8 to 10 seconds. And I play with a lot of monks. I've always played monks. My most played class as a monk. I've 1,000+ hours in a monk, and watching these dashing strike monks go through T6 and lower greater rifts is obscene. It's like they're perma epiphany and dashing strike charges for days. I mean, it made me want to re-roll a monk and just go. It just looks like so much fun with the new In-Geom.
So describe it for a little more detail, for people who haven't played that one.
Uh,
So the sword cuts 8 to 10 seconds off of your cooldowns whenever you kill an elite monster.
Right. So it's really a sword designed. It's not designed for, pushing greater rifts. It's not like the sword you're going to be using in G50. But if you're killing stuff or you're overkilling or you're killing things quickly, you can keep moving to each new elite. So if you're in T6 or anything below G35 where you're basically one-shotting or overkilling mobs anyway, it's where that sword really shines, because you're killing an elite, you're losing 10 seconds, you kill another elite, you're losing 10 seconds, you're killing an elite, and these cooldowns are just, you're able to do perma whatever it is that you would have had to do before with, say, 70% CDR. Now you get 20% CDR in In-Geom, and you're able to maintain perma epiphany, full stacks on dashing strike, all the rest of this great stuff that you would have, had to spec, very, very, very specifically for. And, you can now just do it with one sword.
Can Crusaders use that much? Because they have a lot of cooldown issues with Crusaders.
I've never seen a Crusader use anything but a two-hander and a one-hand.
I guess they have so many awesome two-handed flails that enable their condemns and stuff. So
yeah, there's that one, and then there's the new dagger, which is the Eun-Jang-Do. I think it's what it's called.
Yeah.
That dagger on your follower is amazing, because once the Rift Guardian hits 20%, if you have a perfectly rolled In-Jang, it'll keep it frozen. So you get the Rift Guardian of 20%, and it's usually when they start to do their little enrage thing, like Raziel will send out more lightning bolts, or the Blighter, or not the Blighter, what's the other guy?
Or goddamn Blood Maw jumps everywhere.
Right, or Blood Maw jumps everywhere, or whatever it is. Once you get them to 20%, they're basically perma-frozen. Like, they're not going anywhere. So it's kind of neat. When I, completed my 50, it was because my Templar was able to keep them perma-frozen. So that's a really cool new item. I don't think I would ever use it on my person, but throwing it on your follower is really good.
What classes does it drop for? Any melee class?
Any melee class, yeah. It's really common. I mean, I shouldn't say it's really common, but it's one of the more common items out there.
I don't think I've seen one. I've been playing Demon Hunter, so there you go.
Right.
So
you never
melee weapon you'll see a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I have the Sash of Knives though, dude. I mean, you can't really compare the two, but I mean, I have a belt that throws a belt, so it's pretty awesome that way. And you don't get that because it's only for me, or possibly not. So, any other legendaries you wanted to bring up there, Mokai?
No, I think, yeah. I mean, the In-Geom is pretty cool. But yeah, like what Muggs said, it's not really viable for high grade rifts, but definitely, I've seen Muggs use it, and I struggle to keep up.
Yeah, it's for T6 or power runs or speed runs or XP farming runs or whatever your people are doing, like below G40 for really skilled groups and G35 for almost everybody else. It's easily best in slot for monks.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and, especially with the new changes to the dashing strike set, the raiment set, it definitely helps them continue to dash nonstop.
Yeah, isn't dashing strike 8 seconds, and that weapon by itself is 8 to 10 seconds?
Yeah.
So, but only an elite. It's not every single thing you kill.
No.
We should make that point. It's just does it count for every minion as well as the boss?
No, it's just,
or do you just kill them all with a single dashing strike, so you don't know the difference?
Right. It's basically you're at that level, or if you're in a group, when you're in G35, everybody, you're doing these riffs in 3 to 4 minutes anyway. On the long side, 2 minutes on the short side, so it's up all the time.
Okay, so that's legendary stuff. We can move on to the Blood Shard exploit or bug or whatever. And just briefly, what happened was people discovered that if one person in the game killed a blood thief while the other people in the game were in a greater rift, it would drop, like 4,000 shards for each person in the greater rift.
Right.
And then you would just come back and pick those up and just do a bunch of gambling runs. and people started that had been it had been known for a while, but it became really big news suddenly, like last week, like Thursday, I think it was. And then suddenly Blizzard posted, affixes coming, and people were like live streaming it and getting 100,000 shards in like 2 hours. And so then Blizzard did, they hotfixed it out and turned it off on the console and changed the proximity, so now you only get blood shards if you're nearby stuff. And there's been lots of people saying everyone who did this should be banned or should have their accounts deleted or should at least have their rollbacks gone. So what do you guys think should have happened? What do you think did happen? And how many blood shards did you make in an hour and a half on Thursday afternoon?
I mean, I think what happened was more than adequate, to be honest with you, because I don't know if that was definitely something ban-worthy, where they should lose an account over taking advantage of an exploit, especially a known exploit that was on PTR and made it to live, so. But the rollback, I mean, really affected. If you look at these people that were, that were rolled back, they were P600 plus. They were obviously in all ancient gear, with all ancient weapons, and many of them got rolled back to being pre-70. So they lost what was worth a week's worth of playing, And these are, the top streamers and everybody else, which was, easily 100. They lost 100 and something hours worth of game time. That's, to me, that was more than adequate. It was a big slap to them saying, hey, don't do this again. And it was, showed the community as a whole, if you do this, you will be punished. The only problem is there were people that did it. They didn't do it to the extreme, say, of some of the others, and they weren't punished at all. And that's a little disappointing.
The other question, of course, is why does it matter if someone else exploits when you're in a game where you can't share items, you can't trade items, there's no real PvP, you just see a name on a leaderboard? Do you care that other people can possibly exploit something, M0uakkai? And how many blood shards did you make yourself?
I actually didn't.
Did you use it, and do you care?
I did not partake in this exploit, and like what Muggs said, this was something that was known in PTR, and it made it to live, and so I think there was enough retribution with all of the rollbacks. I don't think it was something that is bannable because us as gamers, we play this game and it was a bug, right? We just found it and took advantage of it, and that does suck, and it does give some people added benefit if you do know about this exploit, et cetera, et cetera. But this is like remember that exploit with the XP exploit with people jumping into greater rifts and stuff, and that fourth person staying in town getting all the XP from it. It's the same thing. It's just another bug in the game that there's going to always be participants in these types of bugs / exploits, and there were people that got rolled back to not even having a seasonal character. That's how far they got rolled back. And so I think Blizzard made a big enough statement with all the rollbacks. But will this stop future exploits from happening? No, it won't.
And
everyone thinks they'll get away with it, basically.
Yeah, well, and then to answer your second part, which was you can't share, you can't do anything, and the competitive nature of D3 isn't the most competitive game out there. I mean, it's not a level playing field. RNG still plays a huge role in whether or not you're going to top the leaderboards. The thing that got me is some of these people that exploited were going to be number one on the leaderboard anyway, so it made no sense for me to do it. I mean, for them to do it. It's a 4-month season. By the end of the 4-month season, a majority of the people who dedicate a decent amount of time should have gotten the equivalent amount of blood shards and the equivalent amount of gear, especially in Softcore, to compete with these leaderboards. But I mean, it put a lot of these people, 100, 150, 200 hours ahead of the next equivalent individual, and that's a big deal. And if you look at like the average player, you figure the average player maybe plays 10 hours a week. That's basically all of season 4 ahead, in what was the first week of gaming. So, I mean, in that aspect, it really was unfair. But, the people that are going to be at the top are going to be at the top anyway. You really can't call D3 competitive because, At the end of the day, the guy who gets a really good, well-rolled IK Boulder Breaker is going to be able to do higher rifts than the person who doesn't, and RNG is going to be, the biggest factor in that. But a lot of these people were able to circumvent RNG with 4,000 blood shards every time they killed the blood goblin.
Yeah, 100,000 more blood charge will make a difference in your RNG.
Right, exactly. Then it's not, then it's not RNG. Then it's I do have everything. I do have everything that's the best.
I've always kind of wondered about what makes an exploit. I mean, you'll see stuff in like MMOs where someone will find a way you can like hide behind a wall and the monster can't see you when you shoot around the corner and kill it, that kind of thing. I mean, I do it all the time, like a Marauder set. You stand around a wall and you shoot stuff, and the little tentacles go and hit things. So it's kind of a fine line between what is an exploit and what is just using the game mechanics. And obviously, in this case, it's pretty obviously an exploit. I mean, it's a game mechanics when you let the blood shard, you let the blood thief run a little bit before you kill him, so he drops some extra shards.
Right.
But if somebody found a trick with some item where he would just run in a circle forever and just drop infinite blood shards as long as you didn't kill him, oh God, I hope that I can find that. I'll look for that tonight. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I just got rolled back. I'm down season 2 again. Oh man, there went that. There went my whole love. But I mean, it is a game mechanic. You found a way. I mean, for a while that was something that people could do the same trick with, like Zays, the legendary gem, where the further away you were, the more your damage went up. And some people would put like a dot on a monster and go to town, which counted as infinite distance, and the monster would die instantly. That kind of thing. Which seems like basically the exact same thing they were doing with this. There was some kind of proximity thing that caused more blood shards to drop. But is it really an exploit? I mean, you're not killing anyone else. You're not cheating anything. You're obviously gaining extra benefit. Obviously, Blizzard feels it's an exploit because they took action on this. But
well, I mean, it was.
Where do you guys draw the line, right?
Well, it's hard to say. It's like one of those things that where you should know that what you're doing is not within. I guess there's that term that Wyatt used and other people have used where it's the spirit of the game, which I don't really buy either, because I watch a lot of sports and they'll say it's within the spirit of the sports, and it's like, well, no, if it's not in the rules, then it's not. There's no reason to actually have to follow it. But they should have known that you're not supposed to get 4,000 to 5,000 blood shards when you kill a blood goblin. It's that kind of thing.
I mean, if you found a trick tonight that would make every goblin in the game, spawn as a blood goblin instead, would you use it? Would you report it to Blizzard? Would you be like, I'm going to use this and hope I get away with it?
Well, that was just.
I mean, it's a cheat, right?
Right. You're doing something wrong. So instead of saying, "Hey, let's report this. I did this. I found this," even if they, the thing is if they had said, I found this thing and, I did it a couple times just to test it and make sure it works, and this is the problem, fine. Then you're like, okay, they actually went ahead and farmed this process for 7, 8, 10, 12, 20 hours. They're like, hey, check this out. This works. Let's just abuse the hell out of it for a long time. And I think that's where Blizzard decided to draw the line. Like, hey, you knew, what you were doing. You were being sneaky about it, and I guess you took it to the extreme, because the people that did it a couple times, or even the people that maybe would get 20, 30,000 shards, a lot of those people weren't banned. And 30,000 shards.
You, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't find out about it until
of course
Reddit
not.
went
I
crazy.
didn't either. I knew nothing about it.
I really didn't. I didn't know what the hell it was until Reddit went crazy. It seemed like Reddit.
So what do you think about? Yeah, what do you think about the cheating aspect of this, M0uakkai? What is cheating in the game? What isn't? If you found something that was really good, would you use it? Would you report it? I mean,
I think
you're afraid you're going to get caught,
I mean, like you said, there's a fine line between what you define as an exploit with this game, because honestly, like that Zaystone thing, it was just a loophole in the game mechanics. This is another loophole in the game mechanics that some people took advantage of and literally ran with it when they found it. But I don't. I can see why some people would say it's cheating. I really don't care. It's not a competitive game, and people who are going to be at the top are going to be at the top, regardless of what you do in terms of exploit or non-exploit. And so it kind of sucks because you put Blizzard put leaderboards out there to kind of create a sense of competitiveness within this game, and it is frustrating when you see the same 10, 20 people at the top leaderboards, but that's the way it is. You know, it's RNG is I think the biggest downfall of this game because there's people who've played 10 hours a week and have ancient everything, and then you have other people who've played 100 hours a week and they it's all RNG. And
But generally speaking, if you play that many hours, your RNG is gonna, you
It
get
should
more
even
trials.
it
Eventually,
should
your
even
RNG
out.
will even out.
Exactly. Yeah, it should even out. But and that's
I think RNG really affects people who don't play much, because if you
Well, I
get one
don't.
lucky
There's
find, it can make such a difference.
there's a really popular monk streamer. His name's Quinn. He
yeah.
probably plays more than anybody else out there. Like he was at the top of. I have the highest Paragon for the season. Last season he was over 1,000. He was like 1,100 or something in a season, which it was a 2-month season. He never found an ancient incense torch of the Grand Temple, which was the monk.
My Demon Hunter found one of those.
Yeah, which was the monk. It's the monk Daibo that allows you to cast Wave of Light. And he never found an ancient incense torch. So you would think that, hey, RNG should even itself out after, reaching Paragon 1,000.
1,100.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I mean, I have yet to do that. Period. Expect in hardcore, I think the highest I've gotten is 600. So you would think that would even out, but you use him and which would be an extreme case, but he never got one. So it doesn't always even out. It doesn't always. If he's not going to get one, I'm never
He had
going to get one.
117 SOJs and Unities probably, but
Right. He had everything else, tenfold. But then you look at it, you go, and I'm looking at it this season where everybody ahead of me on the leaderboard has an ancient IK Boulder Breaker, and I'm like, well, if I don't get an ancient IK Boulder Breaker, I can't, push into the mid 50s. It's just not going to be feasible. I might be able to do it, but for the most part, I'm not. So, and I'm like, and I always think of Quinn. I'm like, well, if he can get the Paragon 1,000 and not get one, there's a good chance I'm never going to see one. Or at least that's my.
Well, that's a happy thought.
Yeah. Well, it's true. RNG is such a big aspect of this game, and that's really what determines how far you can push in the game. And so I can see why people took advantage of this exploit, but like I said, I don't think it's ban worthy. I don't think it's I think what they did was far enough retribution that there it's I think what they did was enough.
Now, we have a vote on that going currently, and most people seem to be. There weren't a lot of votes for ban everyone, and burn the earth where they once stood, kind of things. Most people did want some kind of punishment, but then you always get kind of just a jealousy thing, people who don't have that or didn't use the exploit, and they're like, people who did should be punished, which is easy to say when it's not you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But you wonder if that person had found out about the exploit in advance. Would they have been like, oh no, I wouldn't do that. That would be wrong. They would have been burning their ass off on blood shards,
Yeah.
So. Okay, maybe some of them wouldn't. I shouldn't say everybody would, but it's just like it's like when you find it's kind of like, in real life. You find out some some Wall Street trader has been cheating the market and made $1 billion. You want to go to jail, but if you found the same exploit, you'd probably be living in the Bahamas right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
but when it comes down to it, I personally don't care. I think it's
it made a big deal to people in seasons too. People have this belief that they're going to, within this new season and the new leaderboard, that they're going to be able to compete and they're going to be able to maybe put their spot at number one. When in reality, the number ones are the same number ones that are going to pretty much happen every season, because those are the people that have the amount of time to commit. They're the professional streamers that are getting paid to play the game. So they're the ones that are going to hit those spots everywhere. Every other time.
just one last thought on that. I thought, as you just mentioned, the whole streamers thing, I thought it was amusing because Blizzard has been just relentlessly promoting streamers of late, the last year or two. They have their annual streaming, contest. They're giving out cash prizes. They're constantly promoting it. They're doing interviews with streamers all the time, sometimes to the regret of the community when the streamer asks a bunch of really bad questions. Not the most recent one, but there were some in the past where it was like, yeah, it's like, so why are you so awesome, Jay? Oh, I don't know, I just am, that kind of thing. But then the funny thing is, once there were streamers getting banned and rolled back, every forum thread and Battle.net, do not name anyone specifically. We do not name and shame. Don't call anyone out for this. It's like, you guys are giving these guys like $3,000 for the year for running a stream every day, and now that so and so gets caught doing this, oh, you shouldn't mention their names. That would be wrong. It's like, but you mention their names. There's no rule against mentioning streamers' names when it's something good, or when it's, oh, hey, check out this guy's stream. He just hit Paragon 1000 or something, right? But when the streamer does something and gets punished, then it's like, oh no, you mustn't mention the name. We will delete all these threads. I don't know. I guess that makes sense. I mean, that's probably the way I would run my company if I were them as well. But it just seems like I don't know if it's hypocrisy or just it just annoys me. Probably just it annoys me because Blizzard relentlessly promotes streamers and like never mentions fan sites at all, or very, very seldom. Should Blizzard report, here's who we banned, here's who we rolled back, here's why? Should there be transparency on this?
I don't think. I mean, the community as a whole knows, and I don't think there needs to be. It's one of those things that's none of our business, right? If so,
okay, you're off the podcast.
Well,
Mokai, what do you think?
But it really is not. I mean, in all honesty, it's like they have. If you know somebody's cheating, they have a place where you can submit people that have cheated, right? And the community as a whole, if you really want to find out, knows who did it, right? There was posts, even though there's the no witch hunting thing, on Reddit and some of the other fan sites where you can find out if you really want to know. But at the end of the day, it's really none of your business. It's like if there was a kid in to put school or something. If there was a kid in class that was cheating, the outcome of that is not for the rest of the class to know. It's for the student to know and the teacher to know and the principal to know, and that's it.
But every public trial and punishment is publicized. That's one of the hallmarks of an open and free society. It's also a deterrent. If you found out, like Aaron Hernandez shot some guy after a fight in a bar, and now he's going to jail for 50 years or whatever. The New England Patriots tight end who just got convicted. It wasn't a secret trial held in,
Right, but that's the
no
government.
one finds out
That's
about
not a private company.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, I'm not saying Blizzard should be legally forced to do this, but one of the main points in punishment system is you have an open sense of here's who did this, here's what happened, here's why they were punished, and that's a deterrent. This guy did this, and now he got rolled back 3 weeks or whatever. And when it's all hush hush and secret, it seems like, well, where's the deterrent if nobody knows? But
it's not a secret.
I guess
though.
You can seek it out.
It's not a secret. I mean, we know that there was an exploit, and we know that people were rolled back. That's all we need to know. I mean, whoever did get rolled back, that's their business. But for the general community, all they need to know is yes, there was an exploit, and yes, Blizzard took action and rolled back people. I don't think there should be like a list of people who got rolled back and how far they got rolled back, because it's not like Muggs said, it's not for any of us to know. All we need to know is just the general, need to know basis is the fact that people did get rolled back. And if we did really want to know who did, you can find out that information on the internet. It's not that hard. But I don't think.
So we also know that Blizzard's checks cleared for Muggs and M0uakkai this week. So last topic: BlizzCon ticket sales.
Yes.
Did either of you guys line up for tickets? They were the two sales options this week.
Yes.
Did either of you hoping to go? Did you try to buy them? How did it go, Muggs?
Oh, I didn't even attempt to.
Are you too good to go to BlizzCon?
Well, it's on the left coast, and I'm on the right coast. So from that regard, no. I haven't yet been to a BlizzCon.
Nobody on the East Coast goes to BlizzCon, so I can understand why they don't have planes or anything. You have to like hitchhick across the country.
Well, I mean, of all the places, I'm like, let's see, where can I go this year for vacation and take vacation time from work? And it's like, maybe go to Wyoming and go snowboarding. Maybe go to the Bahamas. Maybe go here. Maybe go there. Yeah, BlizzCon is not usually on the top of my list. So, if anything, if they have like a cool little swag bag, I might like get the digital ticket. To get the digital swag.
That's the saddest thing I've ever heard in my life. Do you play any Blizzard games besides Diablo?
Do I?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I played HOTS for a while. I used to play WoW way back in the day. I played StarCraft 2. I did not like Hearthstone.
You'd go look at other stuff there. You just don't care enough to go. Because I only follow Diablo, so I don't really care that much about BlizzCon. But people who are really big on WoW, usually BlizzCon is really mostly about WoW. That's by far the biggest feature there. And of course, we also have StarCraft, and last year Overwatch debuted and stuff.
Yeah, Overwatch looks interesting to me, but not enough to make a 6-hour trip out to California for.
Well, you could carpool with 9ball.
Yeah, that's right.
So, how about you, M0uakkai? Have you ever run to BlizzCon? Do you care? Will you ever go?
I have not, but I did buy tickets.
This year you bought
tickets?
This year,
yeah. So I'm planning on going this year with a friend and Just to,
And where are you located? How long a trip is it for you?
I'm freaking Kansas, man.
So pretty far.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I'm gonna fly there, but yeah, I just wanted to go for the experience, I guess, and see what's going on. I'm really interested in Overwatch, and so I hope they do something with that this year.
Is it hard to schedule a tornado to hit your town right before BlizzCon so you can hitch a ride to LA that way?
You know, November's not tornado season, so I think I'll be fine.
No, well, it would save you the trip, right?
Yeah,
Just make sure you wind up on the yellow brick road, right? And then
exactly.
watch out for the witch and all that stuff.
Exactly.
And bring your little doggy
Bring a
too.
little doggy.
So what did you have trouble buying this year? You just waited and refreshed your browser like at 10:01 in 1 second or whatever? How did
Pretty
it work
much.
out for you?
I was at work on Tuesday when it came out, or when the sale went. So I took my lunch and I sat in my office and I had both computers up and I was just refreshing. It was actually pretty painless. Everyone was making a big deal about it, and I was reading things about how people were like freaking out and F5ing the whole time. And I mean, I was excited. Don't get me wrong. I was sitting there F5ing like a fat kid in a candy store. But I mean, once I got the tickets, I'm like, oh, cool, I'm going. But
Yeah, I mean, I knew multiple people who tried and failed to buy tickets the first day.
The
I mean,
first day
they've
was
gone in past years.
yeah, the first day was
But
weird.
they got the second day, so
Yeah, the second day
they got it Sunday after Saturday morning, I guess.
yeah, Saturday morning went a little smoother. But yeah, there was a lot of problems, I guess, with the website not working as intended. So,
And there's just 10 times more people trying to buy tickets than they have tickets. It's usually the problem.
Mhm.
So you can refresh it 1 second later, and your queue, your 12,000 place in line.
yeah,
And someone else like you is 200 in line, and they get to buy tickets and you don't.
yeah. So,
But probably you get like a special ISDN connection because obviously you guys are on Blizzard's payroll, and you're totally on board with them covering up the exploit issues and not.
That was actually
supporting
part of the
punishments
payout. Was
Yeah,
exactly.
was BlizzCon tickets. Right?
And you're not even going.
No,
You're
I
just- you're
scalped
just that-
mine back. They make a little
there
extra
you
money.
go.
they're going for a lot too on eBay right now. Not that
Not that you've checked or anything.
not that I've checked, but yeah.
Yeah, you can cover your hotel room that way. Yeah. So, any last thoughts, guys? You're just season 3 continues, and you're hoping for the next Blood Shard exploit and get rich again.
Yeah, I mean, just waiting to see how it. They said from the start, Wyatt said this is going to be a 4-month season, so we're going to see, how close to a 4-month season it is.
Got until August at least.
Yeah, we got until August, or whatever it happens to be. We've got. I'm interested to see the fall off. It's been the first week. People are still really, really, really into the game and playing, and there's tons of groups and there's tons of people running all kinds of stuff. So I'm curious to see if it goes, like the 2-3 week part, like it did last time, and the game just basically died, or if that had more to do with the PTR and the new patch that came out from last season. And I'm hoping, my goal is to, maybe make the top 10 for, whatever class it is that I decide to end the season on.
Well, once you get your Ancient Boulder Breaker, you'll be all over that, dude.
Well, I mean, who knows? It might be one of those things I just get so frustrated after a while of never getting it that I stop playing.
So I was going to ask about seasonal progression, but you didn't do the season, M0uakkai, and you're the first time in Softcore Muggs, so neither of you has a sense on it. In hardcore, at least, people have gotten way higher rifts much more quickly than in past seasons.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
There's always been a power creep. Actually, I was going to bring this up earlier and I forgot because we started talking blood shards. But I mean, we can all agree that there's been a power creep since the beginning of ROS. There's always been a power creep, but this season this patch, I feel like kind of, I don't know, there was not a creep at all. People just literally slingshotted.
There was just power. There was no creep.
Like, I don't know if it's because of all the new items. I don't know. I mean, I've noticed that greater rifts have a lot more density, so there's less running time, and it's just constant fighting. I don't know if that's making it easier to clear rifts. I don't know, but I don't know. There's not a power creep at all. There's definitely
Just power.
something going on. There's more power, and
For the first time ever, I actually start to believe that we need a T7. I used to be very anti-T7, especially
I
being
think
a
we
hard.
need T12, dude. I thought we did that like 2 seasons
T12
ago.
or T20 or something.
Well, I mean,
because-
as a hardcore player, I the big thing that kept me away from T7 or T8 or T9 is it opens it up to like all kinds of builds and like all kinds of crazy stuff that you can make work in T6. T7 would be the exact same thing. Like just give us a next level, let us still be able to not have to use, I don't want to be pigeonholed, right? I don't want to go back to the MP10 days where like you had 2 builds from 2 classes. So that was a big thing. But yeah, definitely power creep is obscene. I mean, there's a hardcore barbarian who did a G51. Yeah, I mean that's insane. Like I have to do a 52 now because
in a week, in like 5 days, right? So
yeah, I have to do a 52 now, or I'm gonna feel like shame on my whole family.
Well, it's like every patch that's come out, every new set that they've changed or released, there's always been like a +1 or +2 to the greater rifts for everyone. And I mean, from my personal experience over the 3 eras that we've had so far, it's always been +1, +2, +3, +4 if I'm lucky. And then this time, I mean, like my monk's never done. I did a 45 on my monk in seasons last season. I didn't really push with her, but this time around, I put on raiment, and it was my first try, and I beat a 50. That's a +5 greater rift. And yeah, it's
on your first try,
on my first try.
not even all min maxed and
No,
perfected
it
either.
was. I just took all the stuff that I had on my mule because Raymond's set was, let's face it, was shit before this.
Yes, it was.
Regardless of how many things they changed, it was shit. And the fact that I took all this stuff on my mule, because I saved 1 of each, just for this purpose, but there's no reason why I should have been able to do that on my first try. Just like with the Barb thing. I mean, I cleared 49 on my Barb on my first try with the first piece of gear of each, that I got. So they weren't min-max. They weren't anything incredible. Nothing's ancient. The only thing that's ancient is my Reaper's Wrap, which I crafted myself. And I just rolled through a 49. And before that, the highest I cleared on my Barb was like a 42. And so it's not a power creep this time. It's, like I said, it's crazy, and like those speed 35s, we were doing those before, and now it's like speed 45s.
In season, most people are doing speed 40s, but yeah.
Yeah, speed 40s in the second day of seasons? Like, are you kidding me? I mean,
first week, yeah. No, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, and I don't know if it's because they've added numbers, because Dashing Strike, really 12.5k weapon damage. I don't know if it's because the numbers are bigger or if it's because the density's changed. I don't know what it is, but I've never seen this much of an increase in power, I guess, from season to season, era to era, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I'll just point out that GR40 would be T11. So for those of you who think T7 might be sufficient, GR45 would be T13, so I think they need like T20.
Yeah,
but,
like I said, I mean T20.
But the problem is what Muggs was saying is that then people feel like you can only play the build that can do T15 or whatever is the highest, right? So there's currently a fair amount of variety because like any build can do T6. Yeah. And whereas, but of course the same thing happens when you get up into the high grader rifts. There's only a few builds that can do GR40 or 45 or 50.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's just it. That's exactly what I want to avoid. I mean, I've heard all the arguments for both sides, and like, if people are doing speed 35s, and I'm still a hardcore player at heart. I know how difficult it is to do a speed 35, even in hardcore, even with the power creep, because there is going to be that occasional death. You don't have that unity. You're not that tanky. You're not that, I don't want to, I didn't like it back when the MP10 days existed, when we were, when most people in hardcore were in MP6, or MP7. And if you really had like a Whirlwind Barb or an Archon Wiz, you might be able to do MP7, MP8. If you were lucky, maybe MP9, 10. And I don't want to see that situation come back. I like the fact that like the In-Geom is one of these things that, hey, you can run T6 and have a good time with. That there's all these crazy speed builds that are just T6 viable. I think that's kind of cool that you have like builds for T6 and you have builds for pushing greater rifts, and you have everything in between. So I don't want to see where they push like T10 and then you start to narrow the field again.
I think I agree. I agree with that. I think the reason why there's so much uproar with wanting a T10, T15, T20 is because people don't like doing trials to do those speed rifts, right? But with the upcoming changes that Wyatt Chang kind of hinted at, if we don't have a trial system anymore, I think that would eliminate the need for anything higher than T6.
I
Because,
agree 100%.
right?
Yeah. If
Because, go ahead, sorry.
no, I was going to say I agree 100%. If I could just sit there and pop in a key and say, give me a G35 or whatever it is, and I don't have to sit through this annoying trial and make 20 keys and then take my keys and put them on a mule so everybody else can use their keys and
Exactly.
I can use my keys. And that if I didn't have to go through that whole convoluted nature and be like, you know what, this build that I just created is amazing at like G38. I'm going to run G38s all day. I'll
Exactly.
farm T6 for keys and then I'll run G38s later. Yeah, I would have zero issue. I agree. I think it should alleviate a lot of the complaints.
It should alleviate. But then I think if that were to change, I think we would get complaints about T6. Because remember, before they buffed the bounty thing, which Flux has said that he likes, which I still don't get, but before we were doing bounties to get T6 keys so that we could get trial keys. But if the trial system is gone, I'm assuming we're still going to have to do T6 for the trials so that we could do whatever they want with
They're
that to
gonna
convert
make
them.
you have keys. I mean, they
Yeah,
have keys for T6 refs. They're gonna have you make you
yeah.
have keys.
But I think that's going to, all the complaints with bounties, I think that's going to shift towards complaints about regular riffs, if that makes sense. Like, then we're going to be like, oh my god, we have to do T6 so we can get these trial keys that we can plug into Auric or whoever it is to spit out whatever, Like,
Yeah, but then it's just how fast can I do T6? I mean, most people
yeah.
are like, hey, let me do a T. I mean, even in hardcore last season, we were doing T6 clears in 2 minutes.
Hmm. Yep.
So I mean, you spend 20 minutes and you get 10 keys and you go and
Yep.
run griffs. I mean, that's what people
And
do now.
then you spend 15 minutes running the griff, making the damn keys in your wave of trials.
Right. The trials is really what just sucks.
Is
I mean,
is
if for can we can if you didn't watch the Blizz Pro thing, where their interview with Wyatt Chang, and I'm assuming most of the people that watch this watch that one because Flux has been on both, and listening to Wyatt talk about how trials came to be, why they never actually thought it out, and like the whole iteration and the whole growth of it, it's kind of made sense in the very beginning, and they are definitely getting rid of it, so I don't think it's going to be an issue anymore.
yeah. But I think, if they do get rid of the trial system, I think we would not hear much about wanting more than a T6.
Okay. You have been listening to the Diablo 3 podcast. We are online at diablowinggamers.com, and good luck with your cow runs. Oh, I actually got the cow riff like 2 days ago. First time I've ever seen it.
Those have gotten really common.
There was hella moo.
Moo,
Moo.
moo,
Hella moo.
moo.
Moo.